What do you... Oh, yeah, we were recording the 2017 Monte Carlo Rally Preview. That's it, wasn't it? So, okay, let's roll. Well, what do you mean it's 28? What do you mean it's 28? I was asleep for over 2 years. That's that's okay. I'm sure nothing's changed in 2 years. I'm sure everything is exactly the same as it was before. And that was recorded a couple of years ago now, as you might have guessed. So, in like 4 or 5 years, nothing much has really changed at all. Apart from there being a new car coming, as you see the end of the World Rally spec cars after like 25 years, with hybrids coming next year. I guess we've got a new era of drivers as well, with the sons of champions and winners such as Rovanperä and Solberg making their claim now on the World Rally stage. And it's the last season for Ogier, at least full time. And I guess there's a new era of calendar as well, as we've seen the debut of the likes of the Arctic Rally Finland, of Croatia, of Ypres as well, finally. And the return of classics such as Kenya and Japan as well. I guess lots of things have changed. But before we look ahead to the debut of the Arctic Rally Finland, there's already been one round this season for the WRC. It happened at the classic rally Monte Carlo, the ever-changing conditions, the twists, the turns. Let's find out what happened there. So as everyone gathered in Monte Carlo, we saw a surprise front runner at the beginning. On the first stage, Teemu Sonninen was flying in his M-Sport Ford until a couple corners from the end, when he went slightly too fast. The backhand clipped a bank and unfortunately saw a premature end to his rally. And for the Finn and M-Sport, it was something they badly did not need, after M-Sport just struggled to make it in time for the Rally Monte Carlo with all the COVID restrictions. But they made it. They probably wish they didn't, as Gus Greensmith had his self-proclaimed worst performance of his career with just an 8th place finish. He really did struggle, the Brit, the only full-time driver for M-Sport this season. But at the front, we saw Ott Tanak in his own day after the first day, but he started to drop back, started to struggle a bit, and it became even worse on the third day when, on stages 9 and 10, he damaged the wheels, ran out of tyres, and had to retire. And once again, the Estonian, after such a massive accident at the beginning of the 2020 season as well, on his day before Hyundai, once again he's on the back foot early on in the championship. So it was a battle between the Toyotas of Ogier and Evans, and in the first part of the night, Evans might be putting away as Ogier had some early trouble, but once the Frenchman got up to speed, he was away, and he pulled away from Evans in the second half of the rally to claim his 50th WRC victory ahead of the Brit, as Evans never at 100% but still kind of very valuable second place finish. In third was the top Hyundai of Thierry Neuville, with a new co-driver after his long-term co-driver didn't agree to a new deal just a couple of days before the event. Very impressive run-in, as he and his new co-driver were not attempt to pronounce his surname. They got together like a house on fire in the end, got a couple of stage victories, and looked actually quite confident at the end of the rally. So hopefully that continues as they start to grow as a partnership as the season continues. In fourth place was Carlo Rovanperä. The young Finn actually led early on, but just struggled with pace, just struggled to get the maximum out of the car in the very tricky conditions of Rally Monte Carlo, but still a very solid top 5 finish ahead of Danny Sorda, another driver who really did not get on the car at all. Behind them was Katsuda, who looked even more confident the rally got on after struggling the first couple of days. He did have a couple of spins to the young Japanese driver, but his best WRC result with 6th place, looking very good for him heading into one of his favourite events as well, with the snow in Finland. And then in 7th was Andreas Mikkelsen, who dominated the WRC2 class ahead of Adrian Formeau, even though they were kind of back and forth a bit slightly in the first couple of days. The Norwegian battled away and pulled away from his young contender and dominated in the end WRC2 class. He finished 7th overall, and Fomo finished behind his fellow M Sport driver Greensmith in 9th, of course in different classes though. And round out the points was Frenchman Eric Comedy returning to the championship after a season away in his new Citroën WRC2 car. A very good podium for the Frenchman. He got a couple of stage victories as well in the WRC2 class, and this is after such a lack of seat time for him in the Citroën, so great job from him, as Ollie Solberg looked like he was getting that 10th place, but the young Swede, the son of Petter, unfortunately crashed out on the final stage. And we also saw a couple of other guest appearances in the WRC2 cars. We saw Grazin, I never know how to say it, the young Russian, who finished 12th in after a very solid final day, finishing the top 8 overall in all 4 stages on that last day. And then in the WRC3 cars, we saw Johan Orsell win despite suffering a punch from the final stage, as Johan Benato finished 2nd as he was fighting for the win with his fellow Frenchman until around the halfway mark, around stage 10, when he suffered a puncture. Same for Nicholas Camin as well. He finished in 3rd after 6 stage wins, the most in the WRC3 class. But again, he suffered punctures which cost him a chance at victory, as all 3 of them just finished outside the points from 12th down. So Rally Monte Carlo, throughout the thrills and spills, it was a very tough rally for all the competitors. Lots of spins, lots of incidents as well, and in the end though, we saw the same old victory. We saw Sebastien win again, and with that victory it was Ogier's 50th in the WRC, just the 2nd driver to do that behind another Sebastien, Loeb. And raises the question though, is Ogier perhaps like the greatest to ever drive around the Rally Monte Carlo, with most wins all time now, with 8 ahead of Loeb? And maybe is he the greatest World Rally driver of all time? Well, in my view, maybe if he wins the title this year, I think he has a very strong case. As of those 50th wins, they've come with 4 different teams, with Citroën, VW, Ford and Toyota. He's got his titles with Volkswagen as well, with Ford and Toyota too. And that's after finishing in 3rd place overall with Citroën in 2011 and 2019. I mean, that's a team that said they withdrew from the World Rally Championship because they couldn't get a driver on the calibre of Ogier's level. Probably not actually the case. But in the overall standings, yeah, Loeb got 79 victories. He's probably never going to be beaten. At least it doesn't look like it. But then you've got Ogier, and behind him there's a big gap to Marcus Gronholm, who has 30 wins. And then with titles as well, you've got Loeb with 9, Ogier with 7 at the moment, and then behind them you've got the likes of Tommy Mäkinen on 4, Juha Kankkunen as well, and you don't really see anybody else stepping up to their level. You might see it from a Tanak if he continues until he's 40, you never know, but yeah, it looks like the Sebastians will be at the front for a very long time in the WRC record books. And as I said, he's won his 8th Monte Carlo Rally, one when he was on the Intercontinental Rally Challenge around a decade ago, and then 7 times since it's been back on the WRC calendar. And as I said, that is 1 ahead of Loeb now overall for Rally Monte Carlo victories. So the case for Ogier being the greatest of all time, I think it really does rest as well on how highly you rate the opposition, because for Loeb, he came along in the period great in the early thousands with the likes of Richard Burns, Con McRae, Carlos Sainz, Tommy Mäkinen, Peter Solberg, Marco Martin, Marcus Gronholm, Harry Rovanperä. A whole list of drivers, of champions, of winners with Didier Oil as well. But then after the mid-thousands, teams started to disappear. Mitsubishi, Hyundai, Skoda. And then we even saw after the financial crash of 2008, Subaru, Suzuki disappear. There was only Ford and Citroën left. There was only Loeb, there was Sordo, there was Hirvonen, there was Latvia, but there wasn't much else after that. And so for a couple of years they were battling until the likes of Mini came in, until Hyundai came in, and now we see, the likes of Toyota as well. For Ogier, he's had a bit of a tougher time than that. I know with Volkswagen when they came in, they dominated with Ogier, they grabbed all the titles, they won everything. But since 27 in the new era, all 4 teams at that time, Toyota, Hyundai, Citroen and Ford, they're all pretty even. And for Ford, for M Sport, this is the only time where they got a bit more funding from Ford Europe to battle at the front. And what did they do? They won the titles with Ogier in both seasons before he moved on to Citroen for a year. And since then, for M Sport, kind of cut back on the funding, unfortunately. It's a bit more of a tougher time for them. And that's a team that has rarely won the driver's title or even the constructors or manufacturer's title. It was only a decade before then, before Ogier arrived, that they'd won a title. And then he's won with Toyota as well. And again, Toyota might be the best team. They won with Tanak in 2019, but they still had a very strong challenge from Hyundai. For instance, with Neuville, who seems to be turning into the bridesmaid of the WRC scene, unfortunately. And the wins over these last few years have been very spread out between the likes of the big 3, between Ogier, Tanak and Neuville. But you also got Evans emerging last year. You got the likes of Robin Pera emerging as well. Sordo's grabbing victories when he turns up as well. Meek won victories as well for Citroen when he kept it on the road. Lobers even pops up and grabbed a victory in this era in Spain after coming back from a few years away. So for Ogier, it's been much tougher for him in these last few years. And if he wins the title again this year, I know perhaps Toyota are slightly better than the rest. And he's only really got Evans maybe at the battle, maybe Robin Perry, you never know. He's very talented, is Caddy, but he's still only 20. So maybe don't put too much pressure on him. It is going to be, 8 titles, 50 odd wins in sort of much tougher, at least the last few years. VW was a bit easier, where he was batting just maybe Latvia really. But these last few years, since 2017, since the new rules, the higher engine, with the higher horsepower, we're up to 380 now, the WRC, with the more aero, with the cars that are on rails, they are really lightning quick. And for him to be battling above the rest, as I said, you've got to look at big 3, you've got big 4 or 5, you've got Lappi winning this era as well. Can't forget Escapeka. You've got an incredibly tight kind of group at the top in the WRC. Even though you don't have a big field now, like you saw in the good old days with privateers filling out the field, you only have double figures just about at most rallies. It's still incredibly tough to win a rally, and despite him being the older statesman now, Ogier in his late 30s, he is still the man to beat after almost a decade now. So for me, if Ogier wins the title this year, definitely put him down as maybe the greatest of all time. But let me know who you think could also be in that conversation. As I said, there's been different areas where likes of Joa Kankkunen's had a tough time, Tommy Mäkinen, Carlos Sainz, even in the 80s like Walter Rall as well, even in the 70s Hannu Mikkola, Levi Vatanen, with Steam Broncos. Lots of drivers can be put in this conversation, but at least for me, someone who I've grown up with and watched as well, I think Ogier is maybe at the top of that list. So that leaves us with looking ahead to the Arctic Rally Finland. Let's see what this snow rally is all about. So the Arctic Rally Finland began in 1966. It was won by Kari Solberg, and it began as part of the National Championship, but quickly became part of the European Rally Championship. And that was the case until 2003, before it came back onto the national calendar from 2005 onwards. Apart from a couple of years, the history of the WRC, it kind of officially began in the late 70s, but in 77 and 78 it ran as an FI Cup for rally drivers, and it was part of the calendar then as well. And both those events were won by a young Ari Vatanen, and we've seen in the history of the Arctic Rally Finland that it's mostly Finns who win it. Only on 2 occasions have non-Finns won it, with Thomas Radstrom in 2000 in his Toyota, and then Danny Sordo in 2010 in his Citroen. And this is the first rally to be held above the Arctic Circle in WRC history, and it has mostly been won by 9-time Finnish rally champion Juha Salo, who's won it 6 times. Former winners also include other WRC champions such as Vatanen, Hannu Mikkola, Timo Solonen, Tommi Mäkinen and Marcus Gronholm, who won it 3 times in a row in the late 90s. And also WRC winner Esa-Pekka Lappi won it in 2012 in his early 20s. Former competitors also include ex-F1 champions such as Mika Häkkinen and Kimi Räikkönen, and Valtteri Bottas has become a regular fixture on the calendar the last 3 years, where he's finished in 5th, 9th and 6th last month. Yeah, he won as part of the National Championship last month, but we got a bit of a different itinerary for the WRC boys. And for Kalle Rovanperä, he won in 2020 in his first run in a WRC Toyota. But last month, Juho Hänninen, the Toyota driver, the long-time WRC driver, he won the rally at 77.99 miles per hour, which would be fast enough to be in the top 3 fastest WRC rallies of all time, behind the 2017 rally won by Lappi and 2016 Rally Finland, the fastest of all time, which was won by Chris Meek. And then Rovanperä won it in 2020 at an average speed of 76.88 miles per hour, which would be enough for top 5, also behind 2015 Rally Finland won by Latvia and 2020 Rally Sweden from last year won by Evans. So maybe it could be possible this rally will be the fastest of all time. Or if you ask the organisers, maybe not, as the rally itinerary shows that we only have 2 stages on Friday, 6 on Saturday and then 2 on the final day on Sunday, as they run through the longest stage of the race, 31.05 kilometres, first time in the afternoon, then at night. And this stage is very quick, so this might be the quickest stage of the rally. Well, then on Saturday we've got some shorter stages, 24.4 kilometres on for stages 3 and 6, in 4 and 7 just under 20 kilometres, in stages 5 and 8 27.68 kilometres, as we have 3 stages in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. And then on Sunday we've got the same stage run, try 22.47 kilometres, and of course on Sunday points mean prizes, especially on that 10th stage, as we have the power stage for not just the drivers but also the teams this year, where the first 5 on the stage get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 points added to their tally. And that just leaves us with who's entering and who's winning the Arctic Rally Finland. Well, in the WRC and in all the classes, it's great to see that we've got double figures in all of the classes. 13 entries in the WRC class, 10 for WRC2, 23 for WRC3. And at WRC level, we're seeing the debut of young Oddy Solberg in Hyundai. It does have a change of co-driver though, as unfortunately and Johnson, his regular co-driver, the Irishman, unfortunately had to skip it because of COVID. And so Seb Marshall, the experienced Brit, is alongside him in the Hyundai. And for Solberg, this is his favourite surface as a driver on. He was 3rd in the Arctic Rally last month, and I was thinking maybe there's a good chance of points if he just keep his nose clean, which, as I said, he crashed on the final stage in Rally Monte Carlo. That might be a big if for his first time in the big boy cars. But alongside him at Hyundai, we've got, of course, Ott Tänak, who retired in Monte Carlo, but he is pretty good on the snow. He won in Sweden in 2019, was 2nd in 2017 and last year as well, and won the warmer event in Estonia in his winter rally, which was in very similar conditions to what we'll face in the Arctic Rally Finland. And then his teammate Nerva was behind him in that rally last month, but he was 3rd in Monte Carlo, had a very good start to the season. He's won in Sweden as well in 2018, but struggled on the snow last year, only finishing in 6th, and it's not his best surface, Nerville, so he might be struggling just to even get a top 5 of how stacked this field is. And then alongside him we've got Pierre-Louis Lebay, who had a very adventurous Rally Monte Carlo, unfortunately crashed out from 7th place on that on the 3rd day. And he has a bit of inexperience on snow as well. The last time he was on snow was back in 2017. So it's been a long time for the Frenchman without style. And again, it might just be a challenge for him to make it to the finish in one piece. But there's a dark horse for Hyundai. Craig Breen and Paul Nagel. It's their first outing since finishing 2nd on Rally Estonia, when the Irishman pushed the home favourite Tänak for that victory. He finished 2nd in Rally Sweden in 2018 in a Citroen, and also was 2nd in 2012 on his way to winning the SWRC title. So for Breen, he might be a dark horse to maybe even sneak onto the podium here in Rally Sweden. But the team to beat will be Toyota, with Sebastien Ogier, coming off the win in Rally Monte Carlo. He's got 3 victories in Sweden, but last year was outpaced by both his teammates as he finished off the podium for the only time last year in 4th, as he got beaten by Elvin Evans, who of course won in Sweden last year, and Carlo, who finished 3rd and became the youngest driver to win the power stage as well at Sweden last year. He's in many eyes the favourite for this event, as he won, as I said, in 2020 around the Arctic Rally, finished 2nd in Sweden, 2019 in WRC2 Pro class on his way to the title, and as I said, finished on the podium last year. Katsuda has a good record on snow as well, as he grabbed his only WRC2 win in Sweden in 2018, and has 3 Arctic Rally starts. And for Toyota in general, they've won 3 out of 4 rallies in Sweden and 3 from 3 in Finland since returning to the championship in 2017, the only non-win being at Sweden in 2018. It's very hard to see past Toyota. And then that leaves poor Ford, as Teemu Sonninen, after crashing in Rally Monte Carlo, he just needs to make it to the finish, and this isn't, again, not his best surface though. Even though he led after the first day in Sweden in 2019, he crashed down the order unfortunately after that, and again it could be a struggle for him just to get some solid points on the board. That's all you need for the Emsort, just solid points. And again for Gus Greensmith, he's done okay on the snow in the past. He came 3rd in WRC2 Pro in Sweden in 2019 and finished 5th in the WRC2 last year, so again he should be in a shout for some points. And then we've got a couple of returning drivers to the WRC. We've got Yanni Tuhino, I apologise to that terribly, the 2-time winner of the Arctic Rally in 2003 and 2014, is only having his 2nd outing in the WRC car, at least for the new spec cars, after Sweden in 2019 where he finished 10th. So again, he could be in a shout for a point or two. And then Lorenzo Bertelli, Milestone's favourite rally driver, is his first WRC outing since Rally Chile in 2019. Doesn't really have a lot going for him unfortunately on the snow, so I think just making it the finish for the Italian will be a challenge. But out of all the entries in WRC, I think Tanak, he will come back, he will fight back on the snow, he will upset Carlo Rovanperä and the home fans unfortunately and grab the victory. I think Rovanperä has finished 2nd and then round out the podium. As I said, maybe look out for Brian, don't really snick that, and of course look out for Elvin Evans. I think it could be a battle between those two. Again, I think for Ogier, he will get a top 5 but might be just off the podium. And then behind that, there's Nerville, there's Katsuda as well to maybe battle. And then maybe, as I said, like Sonninen, if you can keep it together, you never know. But it should be a great battle in the WRC. But just not at WRC level, because in the WRC2 class, those 10 entries are stacked as well. Got Anders Mikkelsen, got Elvin Berg Nielsen alongside and a veteran of the WRC. You've got Adrian Formeau at Ford and Martin Prokop returning after finishing top 10 in the Dakar earlier this year. He is back and he's got top 10s in Rally Sweden overall back in 2012, 13 and 15. So maybe look out for the Czech to at least get top 5 in WRC2. And then for Hyundai, you got Jari Huusonen, the reigning WRC3 champion, who won at Sweden last year. And then Christian Veiby, who won at Sweden in 2019 in WRC2 and was running in the top 10 in the Arctic Rally last month until he had a throttle issue on the final stage. And then Citroen have Sean Johnson, and then for Volkswagen, Esa-Pekka Lappi, he is back. And he, of course, won the 2012 Arctic Rally, came 2nd in Rally Sweden 2019, and was top 5 last year for Ford in WRC. And of course, he's got the Russian alongside him, whose surname I cannot pronounce, but Nikolai, he's normally decent. And as I said, a great final day in Rally Monte Carlo as well, so look out for him to maybe challenge for a podium at least. But it could be a battle between the WRC winners, Lappi and Mikkelsen here. I'm going for Mikkelsen. He said he wants to dominate in the WRC2. I think he can do it again in Rally Sweden. But Lappi, solid podium, and maybe Formeau as well. He seems to be improving all the time, the young Ford driver. I think he could round out that podium ahead of the likes of Huusonen and Veiby. And finally, that leaves us with WRC3. As I said, there's 23 entries, but there's a couple that stand out. A couple from World Rallycross, a couple of former champions, or current champions. We've got Juha Christensen and Matthias Ekström battling in the WRC3 cars for Skoda and Volkswagen respectively. And Christensen, he's a regular at rallying. He got a podium at Rally Sweden in 2019 in WRC2 and a podium in WRC3 last season. And he is the 3-time current World Rallycross champion. And in Matthias Ekström, he of course is won in World Rallycross. He's a 2-time DTM champion. He has driven in Rally Sweden in the snow in a WRC car before for Skoda back in 2005. Finished 10th on that event. And of course finished runner-up in the World Rallycross 2 Kristoffersen last season. And it might be between those two for the victory. But I think they'll just be back from the podium, as there's a couple of guys who have actually won the Arctic Rally in the WRC3 cars. You've got Teemu Asama. I apologise for my terrible pronunciation. He won the Arctic Rally in 2017. He was runner-up, best of the R5 cars in that Arctic Rally from last month as well. So I think he might win this WRC3 car. So ahead of Emil Lindholm, who's the son of 8-time Finnish rally champion Sebastien Lindholm. I apologise for my terrible pronunciation again. He's actually the cousin of Marcus Gronholm. And Emil actually finished first in the Arctic Rally in 2019, and he was 5th last month as well in the Arctic Rally. So watch out for those two, maybe be battling for the victory in the WRC3 class. But there's also another former winner in Eric Patatarin, who won in the Arctic Rally in 2018. Who again could battle for the podium with Ekström and Kristoffersen. And it's good to see as well in the WRC3 class, almost 60 years old, but Michael Solo, the Pole, is back after being away since Sweden last year, and is his first out in the Section C3 car. So watch out for him to maybe be at least battling for points, the veteran Pole. But yeah, in WRC3, I think the home heroes will be the favourites. So there you go. That's Rally Monte Carlo. Maybe Ogier's the GOAT, and that's the Arctic Rally Finland. Let me know who you think will win on the snow this week, and it should be some great fun. Only 10 stages, but it should be fast, furious, and always exciting at WRC level. I'll be back with Power Oversteer again next week. Thanks for watching, and I will see you then. Okay, so we're done, and this time I'm going to take a nap, and then you're going to wake me up next week. Okay? You know, turn off all the lights and everything. I'm not going to pay those bills, so you know, make sure everything's packed away, and then we'll do this again this time next week. Okay? So remember to set the alarm. Remember actually to wake me up this time. You know, I missed 2 years. Lots has apparently happened in 2 years. I've even grown a beard. When are you going to tell me about that? What do you mean look in the mirror? You expect me to be able to see 5 meters in front of me? I can't do that. I can't even see my hand in front of my face. I don't know how anyone else sees this. Remember, wake me up, okay? And not as forceful with the prodding this time.